I think that this is an important episode to get on because of just where we at, the state of the culture.
Yeah.
I think we're dealing with a lot of business in today's culture, and we're also dealing with a lot of busyness. And we have to learn the difference between the two, because we can get business done, but we gotta try to stay as much as we can away from just the busyness. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We need time to seek God, and a lot of times we don't put time aside. We don't make time. We don't spend time with God. And I thought, man, just with the New Year's resolutions that are coming up, I could see a lot of us, me included, you know, one finger pointed at someone else, you always got three coming right back at you. You know what I mean?
Right.
I think when New Year's resolutions coming up and just goals that we set, it's always, at least those of us that are spiritual, we always aim to spend more time with God. We aim to cut out distractions, to love our family and those that are around us more.
Yeah.
That's the whole business and busyness stuff that's going on today. I think I'm going to have some reflection time. We're all going to have some reflection time during the holidays to sit back and think about all of these things.
Yeah.
So, you know, we do got to remember this, though. I wanted to bring this up. Socialness is not always an honest indicator that a person is doing fine. Because in the middle of all of this busyness and in the middle of just trying to get things done in life, we ask ourselves, how social are we? And then if we aren't social, we think of it as, I'm not doing good. And then if we are being social, we look at it as, hey, I'm doing pretty good. Look at me. I don't think one determines, one is a determining factor of the other or anything like that. I think that a person can be social and be doing bad spiritually. And I think a person can be a little antisocial and be okay spiritually.
I think the extroverts have to watch that.
Extroverts definitely.
They find their energy in being around people.
Yes.
And sometimes that could turn into a trap where they mistaken their well-being by just being around people.
Yeah.
And that could be complacency, actually.
Yeah.
It's
good for, I can speak from, because I'm often considered extrovert. I don't know about that, because I get tired of people after a while. But as a so-called extrovert, it's easy for my mental health to get better whenever I'm around people, because I thrive off of that sometimes, you know what I mean? Where I'm just in small group settings, not big group settings, but small group settings, personal situations and stuff like that. I thrive off of that, but then at the same time, it does cut from my personal time with God. So I do have to watch that.
Yeah.
And then I think sometimes on the introvert side of things, a person can be so centered on oneself and their own mental health that they forget that it's important to be surrounded by godly people. There's always that balance, right? There's always that balance, finding that, trying not to be extreme one way or the other.
It can be difficult. The command to us is to fellowship, not forsake the fellowship, and so there needs to be consistent fellowship, and that's difficult for those of us who are introverts. I'm an introvert. I don't find energy, in being around people, but I have found it to be resourceful and helpful for me to be around people, so
godly people that are able to.
And there have been times where I start feeling my need to be, alone or whatever. But sometimes you get that knock on the door, that phone call, or, somebody coming over the house that's in need. That's where you have to set yourself aside, and so I wanted to add a little bit to the state of the culture piece.
Go ahead.
And I think, because I think there's some mistakes I think we're making as Christians today when it comes to, I would say busyness. I would say being busy, I call it a worldly term. I don't think it's a good way of actually telling someone who's a Christian, using the word busy can be confusing. So being busy, I would define it as being irresponsible. I'm just kind of tweaking the term a little bit. Being irresponsible in your involvement. An example of that could be doing ministry while your home suffers. You know, just because you're involved heavily in ministry doesn't mean you're doing well. You know, and I think the mistake a lot of Christians make is that difference between being busy and being alive. Like I've been using that almost like as a contrast, as almost like a way of describing that being alive is good, and it looks busy to a lot of people. Being alive means that there is healthy involvement that entails much of your time. That happens. An example, a church plant. Like we just recently planted a church. It's a season of ministry for us that's taking a lot of our time, and we have to be careful with not compromising our core responsibilities. You know, so a lot of people look at us and say, man, you look busy. You guys look like you're doing things all the time. And I like to tell people that though that might be the case, we might be making some mistakes here and there. I prefer saying we're alive. You know, we have young adults that God has brought to us that are just vibrant and doing good works. They look busy, quote unquote, to the world, or maybe into some people in the visible church, but they're just acting out the book of Acts, which could look busy. If you look at the apostles and you look at the church in the book of Acts, they look busy, but no, it's because they're alive, you know, and I think Romans 12:11 is a good charge to not be slothful in zeal. Be fervent in spirit, serve the Lord. You know, don't be slothful, be zealous, be fervent in spirit, serve the Lord. And so I think that's helpful to help us understand the difference between being busy, which being busy essentially means you're doing a lot of things, but being irresponsible. And being alive just means that you're alive in Christ, and there's a lot of things happening, a lot of good works, a lot of things happening around you. But your core responsibilities aren't compromised.
Lynette says, what's an unhealthy busy? How do we know when we're being busy but in an unhealthy way? I would answer that with if it's taking you away from your devotion with God, and that's not just your personal devotion, but that's like your altogether total devotion, because part of being devoted to God is also meeting with the saints. It's still all of those things that come with being a saint. If it's taking away from your devotion, then it's probably unnecessary, and it becomes unhealthy after a while.
Yeah.